Hey everybody, welcome to the TRICHOMES Hashitout podcast. I am your host, RJ Balde. In this episode, I'll be talking to Graham Magee and Dr. Sunil Pai about clearing the air when it comes to CBD and hemp. We'll also talk about the essential components to creating reputable CBD and hemp products and more. Without further ado, it's time to hash it out. All right. My guests today are two members of the team at Bloom Hemp, a Colorado-based hemp and CBD supplier. Welcome to the show, Graham Magee and Dr. Sunil Pai. Hello, gentlemen. Thank you so much for breaking ground and being the first double guest here on the show.
Hello. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Now, I mentioned that Bloom Hemp is based in Colorado, but you guys are we're all coming from different parts of the world right now. So, Graham, where are you joining us virtually from?
San Diego, California.
San Diego, California. I'm in Orange County. And then Dr. Pai, where are you joining us from?
Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Albuquerque, New Mexico. Okay, right on. Now, how have your years been so far? This is a loaded question, but I like to open up the show with, you would think it would be a throwaway most years, but this year it's got a little more weight to it. So, Graham, why don't you go ahead? How has your year been so far?
Sure. Yeah, 2020 personally, was a crazy year, of course, as it was for most. The pandemic hit everybody differently. Us being on the CBD side of things, we were dealing with regulation, and we had hoped we would have some clarity coming into 2020, but it kind of got put on the back burner with the pandemic and what's going on, and rightly so. We have bigger fish to fry. That being said, it was an interesting year. It was a year of growing. We did get hit fairly hard on the retail side of things. So our retail side of the business, as far as B2B and consumer walk-up stores, took a big hit. And then e-commerce, we started really focusing on the e-commerce side, and we started seeing some growth on the e-commerce, as you would imagine. Everybody's at home. People are purchasing from their homes. So focusing on e-commerce is really where we started to see the increase in how we thought, okay, well, we can survive the storm here if we just focus in on these aspects of the business. And we've been floating by. So, we're starting to see some good growth here in the last quarter. And we're hoping 2021, I can't imagine anything being as bad as 2020, but we're hoping 2021 to be a bright new year for us. Yeah,
that's
fingers
right.
crossed. Exactly.
Everything is crossed right now. Yeah. I'd show my toes are crossed, my arms, legs are crossed. It's all. I'm hoping on everything. Now, Sunil, how has your? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. Other than that, it's been strange. It's been strange.
Yeah,
it's been tough.
Yeah, strange. I think is it is the word, I think, for the year. It encapsulates, I think, everything. It's just been strange with a capital S. Sunil, how has your year been going? And what are you hoping to get out of this year and bring into 2021? Hopefully not the pandemic. You can leave that in 2020 if you like.
I'll leave the panda thing in politics in 2020.
I appreciate it.
One of the things that we've seen is it's learning how to adapt to different stressors. It's learning how to modify the way you run a practice or a business, and particularly how we see patients. Luckily for me, prior to COVID, I was already doing Zoom consultations internationally for clients all over the country and all over the world. So I was kind of used to that. But then to do it all the time, like every single patient, is a challenge, because there is something about that rapport of having sitting down. When I see a client, it's about 2 to 3 hours, and so I see a lot of cancer patients, a lot of chronic disease patients. So it takes some time to get to know them. And so there's, it's nice that you can still see people during, using telemedicine. However, there's an aspect of medicine that is lost, which is kind of the actual physically being there to touch someone, to actually get more of a physical assessment. So it's helpful and not helpful. You can still run your business, but it's, sometimes, being in person is really important, particularly if someone's very, very sick or someone has cancer. And COVID has created a lot of challenges in terms of, patients just getting procedures done or, going to the hospital. Right now in our state, we're already at max capacity. Mm-hmm. So we're one of the states that just like, if you get sick, you're in trouble. Now we're in almost a crisis mode where they're actually looking at rationing care, which is really scary to hear in America because this is where we're at, where, we don't have enough hospitals and doctors and nurses and facilities. So it's learning really, and from our perspective, which has been helpful for us through this process, is teaching our patients what's most important is optimizing their health. It's learning how to lower the inflammatory responses, how to increase their immune system functioning, and really reduce their overall comorbidities that most, unfortunately, Americans have. And unfortunately, that's why we're not doing so well comparatively to other countries. Aside of the not following the instructions and following good public health measures, but also it shows even those people who do, and unfortunately they do get sick. It's all over the range. We're seeing really, really young patients to very, very old patients, and it's quite frightening because I see sick. I see certain people who I know that they're at high risk, and then I also see people who shouldn't be at high risk and they tank just as bad, or they've had and now we're seeing a large culmination of long-term side effects, neurological, memory fatigue, some of these things that we haven't really even mentioned this really much in the literature yet, because we're just still in the phase, like we haven't even got through the crisis mode, and so like we haven't looked at well, when we have like 10 million people right now, how much percentage of those will have long-term side effects from having COVID. The benefit of being in this space, though, is that what hemp and CBD and all these other compounds have to offer really plugs in to this post-recovery of COVID. And so for us, I think we're actually in the best space possible, because it does have to do with healing neurological issues. It does have to do with lowering inflammatory responses. And, a lot of the studies that we were looking at and researching with the VA patients, in the literature, was talking about how we were using these compounds for PTSD and, kind of, the traumatic brain injuries, but we all have now PTSD on some of America has collective. Actually, there's an article written as I was reading this morning, like in a neuropsychiatric journal, like America has PTSD from, because, this is something that not, unless you're used to you're in the military, used to some kind of stressors or change in the environment. So you train for these things, but to have everybody just all of a sudden just throw, a 360 into their, the way they take their kids to school or not go to school now, or the way they do their business at home, or a lot of people lost their jobs and we had to come up with different ways of running a business. That's a stressor that nobody was really used to on a global scale. So now I think we're moving, hopefully for 2022. My hope in bringing more healing to the population, of looking at what are the ways that we can get through this now, rather than being in a crisis mode, is how do we get into healing optimum health mode.
Yeah. Healing would be great. And it's, with the news, with the vaccine coming out and all of that, I feel like there is hope for the future, but I feel like that might put people, do you think that might cause people to put their guard down a little bit now that they know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If it was me, I would have mentioned the vaccine until everything was ready to go. They have so much problems with supply chain, cold chain supply right now, bringing 93 degrees below zero, Fahrenheit, freezers, and then dry ice, the bottling caps, packaging, it only has 10 days transport. It only has 5 days in the freezer storage. When you live in New Mexico in the summertime, when it's 110 degrees, or Phoenix, we don't even get, our blueberries are refrozen and frozen a couple of times by the time it comes to California, where you were at, all the produce from California to New Mexico or the South, right? Texas, for example, it's been frozen on the truck, refrozen. So, there is concern about, the validity of even getting some of these things, especially the further you're away from maybe a distribution center. And then get everybody, still a third of the population is, do not want to get a vaccine regardless. And so there's a lot of issues that we haven't even addressed in terms of economics, delivery, distribution, who gets it. And then I think we'll see a little bit of an ugliness, unfortunately, on the political side of, who gets it first, probably Congress and, probably A-list celebrities and, certain people. And so we're going to see shouldn't it be like this? And we'll find out, just like everything else, there are certain people who get certain privileges and classes that get certain things ahead of other people. So I look at, when we practice, one thing that we're sharing with Bloom is everything we're looking at is evidence-based. And so, we already have taught in our patients in the last 6 months, these are the things evidence-based wise that they can even use to help prevent and lower their risk of COVID. And so we just don't wait for the vaccine. I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm just pro-patient, pro-safety, pro-data. And really, until I see the end published study, the rest of it's a press release. And anything in marketing
Sure.
and media, anything can be said on our press release, and it could be about stocks and markets going up, and also it does create hope. But also, there's also, like, at the end of the day, the proof's in the pudding of has it been peer reviewed and is the data there? And if it is, I'm all for it. If it's not there yet, then we will find out pretty soon thereafter. After millions of people have gotten something, is there a long-term side effect, or how long? Some of the data showing only 4 months on the Moderna vaccine, for example. So what does that mean?
Right.
What does that mean? Because we're trying to. So there's a lot of challenges ahead. So I think they kind of overshot because they wanted to get people to feel calm and have some hope, which is nice. But I always like to have, like, don't give too much away, and then the expectation is going to be more than we can deliver.
Totally. And yeah, I feel like they tried to blow us away with like 99% effective, 94% effective. We tested it on 12 people. Like,
Yeah. Like, one of the things is when it came out at 70%, we're like, okay, because
Sure.
anything above, they're happy. And then, like, all of a sudden it was like a 90%, and the next day it was someone in Russia was like 91.4, and then it was like 94%, and there was like 97. I'm like, that's luck doesn't really happen that well,
Right.
it's like, but it, so it's like, okay, we'll see, but yeah, you're right. The numbers they actually test on, even though we have thousands of people enrolled, is a lot smaller than people think.
Mhm.
So it is a couple of hundred people, then out of a couple hundred people is a couple dozen people, and then we make these statistics. So it is not as like, all 44,000 people that enrolled got sick, and then we got to see that. It's just they enroll, and then there's subsections of what we get to see. So there's some skew, but we won't really know until we actually deploy it, and then we shall see.
Yeah, we shall see indeed. Now, yeah, fingers crossed.
Now,
Graham, if I have this correct, you are a co-owner of Bloom Hemp. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, co-owner.
Correct.
And the COO of the company.
Got you. And I understand that you've been working in the hemp industry since as early as like 2013. So you've been in it for a while now. Tell me about how you came to work with Bloom, and what, in your opinion, sets Bloom apart from other hemp companies that you may have worked with in the past.
Yeah, I think what happened was we got too far away from what we started this whole experience with with CBD. CBD initially was this snake oil that treated everything, and everybody, was looking at it like, well, this can't be correct. It can't do this, it can't do this, it can't do this, because we would have known about it. But back in the day, it was the case. We were out there healing families and doing things that were just miracles, in my opinion, and that's what put me into this space. And we just got away from that, as more people got involved and more companies got involved and it got more corporate. I think we got into more of the corporate side of things, and everything became money driven, which is fine. That's how you want to build an industry. But I think we almost went too far. Now you can find CBD in everything, and it's become almost a novelty item. You
Right.
see it in lollipops and sodas and, just crazy things that just don't make sense. You don't see that with other supplements. So with Bloom, we really wanted to take a step back and say, okay, now we can do this our own, on our own terms. And, I've known Sunil a long time. He's actually been on this journey almost the entire time, actually, that I've been in the space, and we've gotten to be good friends. And we got together and said, hey, we have an opportunity to do things differently and do things the way we want to do them, and go back to our roots and create these holistic supplements that actually do affect people and do give them an opportunity to experience CBD the way it was meant to be experienced. And past that too, introduce them to other holistic herbs that can help them in everyday use as well. So, that's really what drove myself and the founder, Thomas, into creating Bloom the way it's been created, is giving people back the healing aspect of CBD instead of going down a road that just leads them astray.
Totally. Yeah, I completely agree with you. When you speak about the, I don't even know if this is a word, I made it up, noveltization of CBD, because that
Yeah,
I
totally.
feel like has run
I
rampant
like
in the
it.
past. Yeah, that has certainly run rampant. Like, do you have like, if you can you think of like a crazy, like what's the craziest CBD like novelty product that you think you've seen on the shelves? Because I've seen like whatever it is,
Definitely
coffees,
clothing. Clothing
clothing,
was the craziest.
CBD
CBD
clothing.
infused clothing. And I didn't think it was real until I dug a little deeper. And they had CBD infused clothing, kind of like what is that? The Brett Favre company, the Copper
Yeah.
Fit
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
And it just that blew my mind. I was like, all right, this is too crazy now.
I just saw like CBD candles the other day, So, but we also have a Drake candles being sold, right?
Yeah,
That's what, like,
yeah.
Oh yeah,
so
the
But like,
Drake.
I was like, anything can sell now these days. But just going back, a little bit about hemp and from my experience, meeting Graham,
Sure.
way back in the 2013, 2012, I used to be called in to consult for many of these large hemp oil CBD companies early in the day, from a medical perspective. And one of the things that I was always disappointed is that most of these companies, they started off, with a bang, but they were really on the corporate side. It was all about stock trading. It was all about press releases of stock going up, shorting stocks, and publicly traded companies, and big marketing people behind this kind of pushes. But when we on the front side of being a practitioner, seeing patients every day, one of the things that are brought to hemp, brought to Bloom, was what we call the potency, the purity, the safety, and the efficacy. That's the kind of our mantra in my clinic of what we use our products at Sangevity. And throughout all my times of meeting Graham in different incarnations in different companies, that I kept on saying, this is what we need to have, this is what we need to have, and he would also say that too. And a lot of other people that we worked with would, but we just didn't have the control of the direction of the company. It was just like, that's management, and you just got to look at finding it, formulating it, designing it, and so finally at the end of the day, after many years of different incarnations, Graham and Tom was like, what would you be looking for if we were to start a company? Checklist. And once they checked all the thing, like, I'm on board. Like, it's kind of like going back to the original founding fathers of like, this is what the intention was of hemp constitution was. Right. And unfortunately today people use the Constitution for whatever they want. There's probably a Constitution candle, by the way. So I want to just make sure that we are kind of going back to the roots of what we were trying to do at the end of the day is not only is provide an innovative product that actually changes people's lives, and being a physician seeing patients, then we actually can validate the use and understanding, again, potency, purity, safety, and efficacy. And that's where most products just fall short throughout the whole industry.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Pai, you are of course an expert in integrative medicine. You're a radio host, you're an author. In 2016 you published a book called An Inflammation Nation. And you have a prop with it. He came prepared with a prop today. He has a visual aid even. I love it. An Inflammation Nation, a definitive 10-step guide to preventing and treating all diseases through diet, lifestyle, and use of natural anti-inflammatories. I love that.
In fact, a lot of people thought that this last year when they bought the book, they thought it was political because the country's on fire. So there's a lot of inflammation, emotional, spiritual, physical. I mean, this is all all inflammatory.
Sure.
So it kind of fit in just perfectly, by the way.
Now, tell me how you see hemp as a crucial component to living that healthy lifestyle and combating that inflammation, whether it be physical or particularly this year, emotional inflammation, mental inflammation.
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
You're fine.
So yeah, the interesting thing is everything has to do with inflammation, as you know. So inflammation is like the triggering mechanism that makes every disease worse, right? So any word that has the word itis just means inflammation of that word. So like arthritis, gastritis, dermatitis, conjunctivitis, esophagitis, prostatitis. There's 200 different itises now that we have medically diagnosed. Mm-hmm. But we always like to look at what's the underlying triggering causes of that inflammation. Usually it's food and lifestyle, diet, all the epigenetic changes that we already know that conform to either make a disease, go away or actually trigger and make progress the disease to get worse. But one of the things, the role that the CBD or all the different terpenes profiles and all the kind of hemp-based products do is it's more of a lifestyle product that I look at that is helping kind of balance your immune system functioning. A lot of people think it's like a magic bullet, like I need to take it for this or it's going to cure all my ailments, but it's not true. What it is more of a immunotherapy in my perspective. And what we're looking at with the research, it's actually stimulating certain receptors, in the body, which we can always talk about, later on the segment. But it's looking at how the immune system is being involved in fighting, fixing, and repairing itself. And some of those mechanisms are anti-inflammatory in nature, and some of them have other effects, like either sedative effects or anti-anxiety or antidepressant, or helpful with antimicrobial activities as well. So it's more of about healing. The thing is, it's more of a daily regimen of use rather than, I take it when I only have pain, or I only take, people are so used to this, like, I have a pain, I take this pill. I have allergy, I take this. We're kind of reactive rather than proactive, saying like, what can I do to help keep this body in that balance so that I'm not hitting these high inflammatory states, allergic states, anxiety states, depressive states, digestive, states that are imbalanced. And so it is a practice, because a lot of people who I think have tried hemp or CBD products and have said, well, it didn't work for me, is because they weren't using it correctly. They were thinking of just like, oh, it's a pain pill, I should take it and know something immediately. And if not, something actually you have to actually incorporate in your daily regimen. And we can talk about how to do that.
Got you. Yeah, I love that you say it's about being proactive and not reactive, because I think that would have been great advice for all of 2020 for those who thought that the safety precautions didn't really apply to them, or they chose not to subscribe to those and just head out raw faced in the world with no mask and stuff like that. So
Raw faced.
raw faced. It's another one. It just came to me. Yeah.
Love it.
Now,
trademark.
Yeah. We're claiming that now. Can we write that down? I appreciate it. Now, Graham, with so many CBD products available on the market, CBD clothes, even CBD candles, even. Tell me about what makes up the actual full spectrum in full spectrum CBD, because that's another buzz phrase that you see floated around. People will say our CBD is full spectrum, our hemp is full spectrum, we have the whole spectrum in this t-shirt. You know what I mean? So like, what does that mean? And tell me about Bloom's focus on the elite 5 terpenes and how that plays a role in that as well.
Yeah, so I think what's important to understand is the founder, Thomas, my partner, when he first started this, he looked at it as not only a CBD company, but a hemp company. He wanted to make a company that we can educate on all things hemp. So just going at it at CBD was, in the cards originally, and it got us into this space because we needed to create a full spectrum product and a broad spectrum product, because that's what everybody knew. So our first product line, which we dub our classic line, is just a simple full spectrum and a broad spectrum. And what that means to the grand jury is that it's one has THC and one doesn't, and that's about it. That's about the extent of a full spectrum and a broad spectrum. Is a full spectrum has 0.3% THC, and a broad spectrum has 0 non-detectable THC. And we love those products, don't get me wrong, because a lot of people just getting introduced to CBD, they look for those products, and we made sure that we made them the best products they can be, with our USDA organic certifications. But we wanted to make more than just a quote unquote full spectrum product and broad spectrum product, which is what brought us to Sunil and introduced everybody to the essential line. And that is really, our pride and joy at Bloom is our Bloom Essential line, because now we're reintroducing terpenes and other cannabinoids into these products that we can confidently claim, hey, this is an actual full spectrum. But we don't call them full spectrum, we call them essentials, because we don't want people to get it twisted. We don't want to get into that argument with people that this is full spectrum versus this full spectrum, and because you're not going to win that, because people have it in their mind that full spectrum is just 0.3% THC. And there are tons of companies out there, and we actually have some comparison charts with some other of the top vendors. We'll never name names, but it's pretty crazy what these companies claim is a full spectrum when you look at all of the terpenes and all of the cannabinoids that are out there, especially the more popularized ones, and they don't pop for any of them, and they change from batch to batch. So I think for us, it was important when we made a full spectrum, which are our essential lines, that we had the entire terpene blend. We had all the cannabinoids in there. And sometimes we do reintroduce them, but what that allows us to do is make a product that is standardized every time. And I think that's, and Sunil can touch on that more, and elaborate, but I think that was what was important to us. It's not just giving you a product that has all these cannabinoids and terpenes. It's giving you a product that you can ensure has the same profile every single time, which there aren't many companies doing that. And I think that's important, especially when you're taking it as a supplement and you're relying on it month after month. If that formula changes, even in the slightest bit, it could change your mood. It can change the way your body takes it and the effect on it, right? And then just touching on the 5 terpenes, our elite blend, we wanted to focus on just 5 terpenes. There's so many, but the major 5 that you get is myrcene, pinene, linalool, beta-caryophyllene, and terpene. Those are the main 5 we wanted to really focus on because people know those terpenes. And each one of those terpenes, heightened, have different effects. So, when we put more linalool into a product, you're going to get more of a calming effect. Beta-caryophyllene, for instance, you're going to get more of an anti-inflammatory effect. So when we use our Elite 5 terpene blends, we not only use those 5 terpenes in a specific blend, but we spike whatever one will be relevant for that specific condition that we're looking for, whether it be calming, digestive, or and pain relief. So that's really where we came up with the Elite 5 terpenes, is just focusing on 5 that we know we can recreate every single time, because we knew we couldn't do that if we just put our organic hemp in a bottle, because it would change every time. And it would also change with the botanicals we use. We use natural botanicals as well. So every time we use those, the terpenes change. So what we do is we say, okay, wherever we land when we test, we're going to reintroduce our Elite 5 with that specific heightened terpene balance to make sure that that's always going to be the effect that the customer will want.
What do you think needs to be done to ensure that consistency? Of course, Bloom is focused on that. That's one of your core values is providing that consistent product, that consistently formulated product. What do you think needs to be done to help ensure that other companies are held to that same standard and not just switching things up out of nowhere?
It's really tough, because even the supplement industry, I don't know how many times I've gotten supplements that are pills and the pills look different every single time. And I understand that because they're natural, right? But when you actually go down to the chemistry of it, that could change the terpenes, the flavonoids, there are underlying components that don't show up on a label that do change from batch to batch. And for the most part, it's not a huge issue. But I think when you're dealing with specific items like we are in our space, it's important that those are controlled a little bit better than they are. Just saying there's 1,200 milligrams of CBD in this full spectrum tincture isn't enough, because what else is it that makes it full? Well, if there's other items in there that make it a full spectrum, you better make sure that those are the same every single time, or else you have a product that's different every time you run the batch. But as far as how we control that, it's really tough. I think we're going through regulations, new regulations every year. I think it gets better every year. We're starting to see a lot more control in this space as far as regulatory control is what am I trying to say here? But I'm trying to say there's more regulatory control than there was when we first got into it.
Sure.
Sunil can vouch for that. It was a wild west back then. So
Sure.
it's gotten better is what I'm trying to say. And I just don't know how we will see a difference anytime soon, because it's very, very hard to get in and actually say, you have to do this and you have to do this with regulatories on supplements. It's very, very loose.
From my perspective, it's all about, when we look at potency, purity, safety, and efficacy, it's looking at how do we get the results, right? And so at the end of the day, there's a huge aspect in the supplement and also in the hemp CBD space that is just marketing, right? And have it goes up for a while, they have peaks, the social media, Google, but then it fades away because they're on to something else that they're trending. But from our perspective, at the end of the day, is when you build a high quality product, which we've done in our practice, and then working with Tom and Graham at Bloom, it's like these are things that when you create a high quality product, it withstands the test of time. You always use it, like you're not jumping from trend to trend. Oh, this is the hot thing that the nutrition market is introducing, some superfood or some new antioxidant kind of berry or whatever. That becomes very trendy. What we have to look at is, like, from a clinical standpoint, what are the things that we know treating patients can help with alleviating or actually solving their conditions. When we look at herbal medicine, from our perspective as an integrated physician, there's two camps. Some people like just to use raw products, raw herbs, which is fine. But from a clinical standpoint, we kind of like to look at standardization. We like to standardize extracts. We like to standardize herbs to certain components so that every batch that you take is standardized, so that we know that, from a clinician standpoint, I know when to dose up, I know when to dose down based on that response, because I know the patient's getting the same thing every time. Just, like when you take something over the counter, right? You're taking over counter medication, or you're taking, say, hopefully a supplement that's, GMP quality. You'll say, okay, that 500 milligrams has this many ingredients of this much, and then that per pill, it should be the same. But, unless it's made correctly, that varies. And then that means the clinical experience of the consumer also varies. And we have to standardize that, so every time they take it, it's a universal experience. And so by actually looking at this profile and saying, what is missing, when we look at, say, cannabis species that have a lot of literature and a lot of leaning towards, like, this species has this benefits, and then when we look at that species, it has a certain terpene profile. And so what we're looking at is, can we match or mimic what nature has provided without having this heavy burden on this concept of THC and the whole the pro or con use of that. Is looking at, can we get the benefits that people were taking certain strains for certain reasons, whether it's more for digestion or more for sleep or more for anxiety, and then can we then reintroduce that, so we're actually putting back nature what it's best, and making sure it's clean. To go further than that, how do we change the industry from our standpoint is actually just creating the gold standard, which is the certificate of analysis. I'm all about COA. And so our COAs are spectacular. We're looking at heavy metals, mycotoxins, solvents. We have the whole terpene profile. We have the cannabinoid profiles. And so when we say it has this there, you can actually look at it. And we have a lot of information on the Bloom Hemp website that can explain. Here's your COA, and you can actually look at your batch of a COA and actually read it. Most of the time, when Graham and I first started out, 2012, it was a Wild West, and a lot of these companies were actually using their own arm of a company doing their certificate analysis, and it was like a high school student or some kind of LLC that it was just written from the corporate, and it was just in the same place, and it was, and someone signed something and didn't mean anything. Now, we can actually, here's your certificate of analysis, here's your GMP certificate, here's USD organic certification, and these are things that most companies cannot really produce, and everybody will say, oh, we are. Right, we are GMP, but at the end of the day, they're not. And at the end of the day, they're not organic certified. And at the end of the day, they don't have a COA. And if they do produce it, it's really minimal quality. So it's just like, okay, it may have that much in the bottle. It doesn't tell you the specific ingredients, good or bad. And we want to show both. These are all the good things that we purport to put in there, and that's what we will show. And these are all the bad things that you want to make sure that none of your hemp products have. That unfortunately, most products do have. So what we can find right now, if you take something off the shelf, most of these products fail on some level, because remember, most I would say, most of the industry is just people white labeling products, right? Private labeling, some supplier, and they're going to go to whatever's cheapest. I can go right now on social media and they can say you can buy 12 bottles of hemp oil and get your name on it. And so everybody, literally, there's like every day there's hundreds of people
Yeah.
that are like all of a sudden experts in this industry. And I understand, people want to be proactive. I understand people want to be, taking self-control of their health. Absolutely, I'm for that. But it's a little bit like, there's difference between being a neurosurgeon and trying to play doctor. There's difference between, me trying to, fix your car. No,
Right.
I'm a doctor. Don't ask me to fix your car.
Right. Right.
There's a mechanic and engineers, there's lawyers, everybody has their specialty. But right now, like everybody, for some reason, on social media and the internet now can be an expert as long as you have followers. And that's kind of, we want to go back to science. Like, hopefully 2021 will be the year of science again, coming back where facts is facts. And we don't have alternative facts. We don't have alternative science. And once you follow science, and especially if you follow medicine, then you do get a better product and a better outcome.
Alternative science. That just scared me. That's a scary sounding phrase right there. I thought alternative facts was scary enough. Alternative science.
You have no idea, my friend.
My God. Oh, Lord. All right. I only have you all for a couple minutes here. I don't want to take up too much of your time or spill into anything else you have going on today. So let me just ask you one more thing. About a week and a half ago, Jesse Batend of TRICHOMES, he's a writer at TRICHOMES, he published an article regarding Folium Bioscience. I don't know if you've heard about this. They're another Colorado-based CBD producer. They were sued by their landlord for creating a toxic hazard at multiple facilities that they operate, and damaging both the buildings and surrounding property. The lawsuit alleges that Folium Bioscience improperly disposed of large amounts of ethanol by pouring it down the toilets at one facility and on the ground outside of another. So tell me, what are your thoughts on that? I would presume that Bloom is not doing that and has a much better focus on environmentality and paying attention to what you're doing with your toxic and hazardous waste. So what are your thoughts on that news? And we can start with Graham.
Yeah, I did hear about that. And, without looking into it further and discussing with people, I do know people over at Folium, and, they are a massive company. It was a surprise that they were doing things like that. And, as far as what we do at Bloom, on the farm, we're USDA certified organic. So what that means is you just don't find any solvents or any herbicides, pesticides, and things like that on the farm whatsoever. So we come out, we get audited. They come in, they do all their check marks, and it's a third-party auditing company that comes in and they audit for the government. They audit for USDA, which is an arm of the government, and that's how you get USDA certified organic, right? So they come in, they do their check marks, and they do it yearly. So you're guaranteed not to slip up when they do it over a year. However, when we take our product and then to the processor, in which we have a third-party partner, we don't process in-house. We actually have a third-party partner that processes our organic material, and they use organic ethanol, right, as well. When you use organic ethanol, you try to reuse it as much as you can throughout batches. But, with talking with them, they have certain SOPs in which they have to abide by, just standard operating procedures that are county and state and Fed governed. So there's different classes and different items you have to check based on your county and based on the state and then based nationally. So they go to their county and they say, okay, we have this material that is considered a hazardous material. And the county then goes, okay, this is how you dispose of it. And then they create their operating procedures on how to dispose of it properly. And that's fairly standard. Sometimes it does cost money to dispose of this product. And you can see why companies that are doing high volumes of that try to, create other means of disposing if they don't want to spend the money. So, as far as what Bloom does and what our partners do, because we vet our partners as well, we do things by the book. We don't cut any corners. It may cost us more money. It may put us back on the timetable of getting things delivered, but you can always guarantee that when you put our product into, whether it's coming from our raw material side, which is our Bloom distribution company, or our finished product side on Bloom Hemp, you can guarantee that the product is safe and that we did everything we needed to do on the back end to make sure that we're not creating any toxins or a toxic environment for the area and the farm.
Sure. And Doctor, why is this might be an obvious question, but why is practicing environmentality important for you and for Bloom as a whole?
Well, as part of a lifestyle brand, that we've developed here, we're looking at the sustainability of the product itself, right? The farming itself has certain amounts of sustainability in terms of its environmental aspects positively versus negatively. In terms of growing actually hemp product. But what we're looking at is the importance of when we say the hemp brand is because we're looking at how to utilize the full plant. And so as a lifestyle company, although everybody wants to focus in on the hemp oil and the terpenes, which we're I think the gold standard now in the industry, is that we're looking at other products like the food side. And so one of the things that we've introduced from again looking at how we can take this wonderful plant and look at all the aspects is we developed hemp butters. And so from my perspective, I'm one of these peanut allergy kids growing up, and so it was always nice for me to now we have a organic hemp butter, like a roasted like a nut butter. And so we're introducing all the different parts of the plant. So it's not just looking at let's just take this and extract it out, and then what are we going to do with these other parts of the plant? It's looking at what's the sustainability of can we maximize and utilize, just like when you go to an organic farm. We look at composting. They look at what all the parts that we can grow and kind of permaculture and bioculture of what are other things that we can take and express it, because these are all providing us certain types of nutrients. And so although we focus on the cannabinoids and the terpenes, we also have to look at just the omega-3s and the protein and the fiber. That is also very, very important from our health. So from our perspective, it's a wonderful environmental project because it's looking at starting from USD organic is key, because it's just like your food. If you don't start from that, then everything else along the way can be a slippery slope.
Right.
And unfortunately, there is pushes in this industry, but it's not only in the hemp industry; it's also in the cannabis industry. There's no rules and regulations, even dispensaries, to say someone who runs a dispensary needs to wash their hands after using the restroom. Even though every restaurant or even every taco truck will have like they've gone through some kind of certification, like this is appropriate handling. Right. And so there's a long ways to go for regulation, because right now most of these things are just about taxes and revenue. And what we're looking at is like it shouldn't be treated any different than a nail salon to a restaurant. There are certain things that need to be in place. And this is where, when we get these certifications, us going for those certifications, which is not cheap, and it took a lot of time to get USD organic certification. It's not an overnight thing when it comes to crops. And you know that most crops in most industries, they can, if they use any kind of chemicals on the land, it can take up to 8 years because they have to wait till all these things are different and change and stuff like that. So it's not like, I can just go buy a piece of land right now and file a certificate and pay the money to get USD organic. So from my perspective, we're doing the right things, and hopefully we can create an example for others to follow, because it would be nice that consumers can go throughout the industry and buy quality products. But right now we know that patients and customers can buy with confidence, again, potency, purity, safety, efficacy with Bloom products.
Totally. And I certainly appreciate the focus that you put on that, on making sure that you're developing these consistently formulated products and getting this out to the people who need it. And I thank you too so much for spending the time to share that perspective with me. I really, really appreciate it. I will be sending you to let me know your shirt size, because I'm going to look up some CBD shirts and send them your way. I heard they're really, really comfy. So yeah, we're all getting Drake candles and CBD shirts good. for the holidays.
Sounds good.
Right on. Graham and Dr. Pai, hey, thank you two so much again for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Stick around for literally like 30 seconds after this, just so I can say goodbye to you and some last minute information. But thank you all so much. Keep up the good work. And I sincerely hope that you two remain safe and well for the remainder of 2020 and going into 2021, y'all. Keep up the good work.
Yes, thank you. And
Thank
best of
you.
health.
You as well. Thank you.
My thanks again to Graham Magee and Dr. Sunil Pai for joining me. If you are a member of the cannabis community and have a story you want to share with us, we would love to hear from you. You can reach the show at hashitout@trichomes.com. You can help others find the show by taking a moment to subscribe to the podcast and write a review. You can also join the discussion with industry insiders and get your voice heard by joining the community at trichomes.com and following us on all social media. Hash It Out is produced by David Fortin and presented by trichomes.com. I'm your host, RJ Balde. I'll catch you next time.